Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 12 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're learning how to make Python and Arduino work together. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your support and your encouragement that keeps this great content coming. You guys that are not helping out yet, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to my Patreon account. Think about hopping on over there and hooking a brother up. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to show you is my solution to the homework assignment that I gave you in episode number 11 of this class. And just as a quick reminder, what we were working on is on the Arduino side, we had an RGB LED. And on the Python side, we were getting input from the user as far as what color the user desired. That information was passed over to the Arduino, and then the LED was lit according to the color specified by the user on the Python side. Then just to make things a little bit more interesting, on the Python side, we had an orb that we created, and that virtual orb would also turn the color of that the user specified. So we had the real world LED turning that color, and we had the orb in the virtual world turning that color, and it was kind of neat. Now, what your homework assignment was, your homework assignment was to go into on the Visual Python side and really build a more accurate model of the LED, a three-dimensional model of the LED. How many of you guys were successful? If you were successful, comment down below, I am legend. And if you were not successful, comment down below, I folded up like a cheap Walmart lawn chair. You guys that were successful, I hope that you have posted your solution, doing a screen capture or a screen recording of the model that you created, and then down in the comments below, post a link over to your solution, and then on your video, make sure you post in your description a link back to this video so that there's context. Anybody watching your video, they will know what you are trying to do. Okay, so now let's just jump right into it. And what I will be doing today is I will be showing you my solution. Now, what I really want to show you today is I want to show you how to do parametric design, because probably a bunch of you guys are just jumping in and saying, okay, I want a cylinder, I want this, and in the parameter section, just typing in numbers. I want to show you a better way to do it. And I hope you will really pay attention to this lesson, because this lesson is going to be really, really important for you guys that are going to be taking my upcoming lesson on 3D CAD design for 3D printing. So we're going to set up a 3D printer, and we're going to be doing 3D modeling and 3D design. I'm going to kind of introduce you in today's lesson the concept or the methodology or mindset behind parametric design. And you're going to see that if you'll do things this way, it really, really makes things a whole lot easier. Okay, does that make sense? Well, let's jump in, and what I will need you to do is go over and get your circuit hooked up for your RGB LED. I showed that in lesson 11, plus most of you guys should know how to hook up by this time a RGB LED. If you don't, go back and watch the last lesson. And then also, if you want to kind of just be starting exactly where I am, you can go to the most excellent www.toptechboy.com, and I should probably get out of your way here a little bit. Okay, and then what you can search on is use this happy little search bar over here. Let me do a little bit of Windows management if I can here. There we go. Get this where you see the same thing that I see. Okay, in this happy little search bar, you can search on something like using an Arduino with Python, lesson 11, controlling an LED from Python, and you should come to this lesson. And then if you look at this little snippet of code here, this is the code that I am using let's see, this is the code that I am using on the Arduino side. So you can run and snag that if you want to make sure that you are starting at exactly the same point I am. But I already have that downloaded into my Arduino, and so we are going to, and that's not going to change, because today what's going to change and what we're really going to be doing is we're going to be working on the Python side. Okay, but now the first thing that I need you to know, and this is the first lesson, if you don't learn anything else today, learn this. Before you jump in and start designing things or modeling things in VPython or in your CAD thing, you need to get a good sketch. You've got to get it sketched out on paper before you jump in and start trying to design it. And so I'm going to kind of take you through that. And what I hope you'll do is I hope you'll kind of see my mindset and sort of see how I think about these problems, because it really is a mindset. And if you will really kind of pay attention to what I'm doing here, I think you will see its advantages. And so I need to move things around a little bit here. Guys, man, I am still getting used to this sketch pad, and I am going to try so hard. I am going to try so hard today to write neatly. Okay, I feel like I need to go fast, and so I kind of get in a hurry, and it ends up being not very nice looking at all. So what I want to do is I want to start with a physical picture, which you can see here, of the object that I want to model. Okay, and then the first thing I want to do is kind of like break it into how many shapes would I have. Well, the first shape, oh my, that's not good. Hold on just a second. I have a little sketchpad issue to deal with here. Get my right color palette. Okay, sorry about that. All right, that looks real good. So I start with this physical picture, and now I got to figure out how many objects do I need in order to make this work. Well, the first thing I see is I'm going to have a base. I'm going to have a base of the LED. Then the second thing, I'm going to have a body of the LED. And the third thing, I'm going to have a top of the LED. And I really want to create something that visually really looks like an LED. So I'm also going to add inside of the top a bulb. Okay, so I'm going to have this bulb that's going to be inside of the top, and so that's going to be item number 4. And then of course I'm going to have 5, 6, 7, 8. So in the end, I'm going to model this with 8 objects. All right, 4 legs, a base, a body, a top, and a bulb inside of the top. All right. Now the thing is, you don't just go in and just start creating those with a, like a LED base is equal to a cylinder with a bunch of numbers, because then when you run it and it doesn't look right, it's really hard to edit things where you just have a bunch of numbers with those VPython commands. So what we want to do is we want to very carefully set up a group of parameters. I'm going to get rid of these so we can kind of start setting up our parameters. Don't want to go that far back, so that we can start setting up our parameters. And then when we set up our parameters and our values, then we can come in and we can start coding it. But let's get it working on paper first. And so where do I want to start? I want to start with my base. And let's see what would be a suitable color here. Let's try blue. Okay, so the first parameter that I am going to have is I am going to need a radius of my base. Okay, I am going to need a base radius. And so I'm going to come over here and try to be very neat. I'm going to have a base radius. And because this could be foot, inches, millimeters, or whatever, I'm just going to start and I'm going to set it to 1. Okay, now you could actually get calipers and you could measure what the base is, and you could actually do it in real units, but I'm just going to kind of be doing it in relative units, calling the base radius 1. Okay, if I have a base radius, I am also going to need what? I'm going to need a base height. And so I'm going to come in and say my base height is equal to. Now, what you could imagine is this is kind of thin, so you could say, well, if the radius is 1, maybe I should make the height. Maybe I should make the height, though, let's say 0.2. But I'm going to show you, you don't want to go in and just put a bunch of numbers. You want to kind of make it where it is relative to other things. So if I wanted to redesign this, I wouldn't have to go in and change a lot of things. So what I am going to do is I'm going to say that my base height is my base radius divided by 5. So if I came in later and wanted to make my base, if I wanted to come in later and make my base radius 10 times bigger, it would automatically make my base height about what it needs to be. All right, does that make sense? Now I come here, and now we're going to call this the body, right? This area kind of here is going to be a cylinder, right? And that cylinder we're going to call the body. And so now I'm going to need a body radius. All right. Now, do I want to make that body radius 0.8? Well, 0.75, 0.8? No. What I want to do is I want to make it 0.75 times what? The base radius. Okay, so again, I'm going back and referencing everything to this link. Now, you don't have to, but you want to use as few of independent parameters as possible. You want to design it so that you have parameters that depend on other parameters, so that if the radius gets 10 times as big, the thickness is going to get 10 times as big. If the base radius gets 10 times as big, well, you're probably going to want that body radius 10 times as big. So you see, I'm trying to do this all very carefully with parameters. Then also, I would need what? I would need this body height here, and I'm going to have the body kind of be subset into the base, and so this is going to kind of come back to here. And so then I am going to need a body height. I'm trying to be neat. I think I'm being pretty neat so far. I'll try to continue to do better, but the body height, I'm going to make it 2 times the base radius. 2 times the base radius. And so that's sort of saying that the height of the body is kind of like the diameter of the base. And just eyeballing it, I think that would be pretty good. Now, once we run it, we can come back in and tweak those numbers a little bit if we want to. Okay, so I have the body defined. Okay, now I have this top. This top is going to be a sphere like this. And so what I would call that is I would call that LED top. So I'm going to have LED top radius. Well, what you can see is that just is going to be the same as the body radius. I hope you can see that. Does that make sense? It's going to be the same as the body radius. I think that makes sense. Okay. Now, one part of parametric design is being very deliberate about every single dimension. The next part of parametric design is being very, very deliberate in position. Okay, now I referenced the base to kind of like the origin. I referenced the body, right? We came down to the origin. But now this guy up here, the top, I need to give it the position of the top. I need to give it that center position of the top. And again, I do that with parameters. And so that would be LED top, and then what? Pos for position. And that, of course, since it's going to be an X, a Y, and a Z, that is going to be equal to a vector. And now we've got to give it an X, a Y, and a Z. Well, where do I want it in X? Well, I still want it aligned again, along the origin, so it's going to be 0 and X. But Y, I have to move it up. I have to move it up how far? Well, body height. Okay, so if this is the height here, then this needs to intersect it right here. Did you see that? If this is the height right here, then that position, that center position, needs to be the same. So it's going to be body height. And then in Z, I'm not going to move it in or out in Z. So in Z, that's going to be 0. Okay, so guys, this is a little tedious, but believe me, when we get to coding, the coding is going to go much quicker because we have sketched things out. And what bothers me when I see the CAD design tutorials on YouTube and online and so forth, the thing they do is they just start going in and coding without letting you see how you think through. The easy part is, I've got a bee buzzing here. I hope that that thing doesn't sting me. The thing that you have to see, though, is that if you define it carefully on paper, it takes a little bit to do that. But then when you get to the coding, it's going to be very straightforward, very easy to debug, and then very easy to adjust. And so hopefully it makes sense why I am doing it this way. So we have the LED top position. Now, what I said was I also inside, you see, I want to make this really look like an LED. So I want a center part of the top that's going to be brighter than the outer part. And so I'm going to call that the bulb. Okay. And so this is going to be the bulb, right? And so the bulb, I'm going to have to give some things to. So I'm going to have to give the bulb a position. The bulb position is going to be equal what? It's going to be equal to the LED top position. Why? Because the center points are at the same point, right? Does that make sense? So I have the bulb. I have the bulb position. Okay, the bulb position, that makes sense. And now I'm going to need the bulb radius. The bulb radius. And that, if we think about the bulb radius, that would be kind of like the body radius, right? It would be this radius, but you would want it to be smaller. So let's just say 0.75 times the body, 0.75 times the body radius. 0.75 times the body radius. And so you don't yell at me. I will get a little bit further out of your way. 0.75 times the body radius. Does that make sense? And let's see. I've got the LED top position. I've got the bulb position. Okay, that's good. Now what do I have? I have 4 legs. Okay, and let's go ahead on the legs and let's set the leg width. That is not good. Let's set the leg width. And if you think of this as sort of a square, a little square, okay, and then it comes up. And let's go to green here as we're moving to a different body. Okay, so we've got these legs are like little squares. And what I'm just going to call that is, I'm going to call that like leg width. Leg width. And that's going to be both of these because they're square. So I'm going to say leg width. Leg width is going to be equal to, let's see. I am thinking leg width. I'm going to make that base radius. Base radius divided by 10. Because if I think of like from here to here versus from here to here, it looks like that would be, if I divided by 10, I'm going to at least be in the ballpark. Okay. Now, I have 4 legs and they have different lengths. So I'm going to say leg 1, and I'm going to say leg 1 length. Leg 1 length is going to be, if this is the radius, then I'm going to call this length, leg 1 length, I'm going to say it's 8 times the radius, 8 times the base radius. So 8 times base radius. Okay, now I am not arguing that you should use my 8, my 10, my 0.75. I'm arguing that you should set yours up like this, and if you want to make yours a little fatter or a little longer, do it in these equations, okay? Now I'm going to have leg 2 length, and leg 2 is a lot, leg 2 seems to be a lot longer, so I'm going to say it's 10. You see, this is leg 2. I'm going to say it's 10 times base radius. 10 times base radius, okay? And now leg 3 length, leg 3 length is going to be, it looks like between the two, so I'm going to say 9 times the base radius. 9 times the base radius. And what do you see about leg 4 length? Leg 4 length is leg 4 is the same as leg 1, so we'll say that's 8 times base radius. Okay, why don't I just go in and just call it leg 1 and just use leg 1 for both of them? Well, what if we got another LED and they weren't the same? Well, then with this model, it would be easy to go in and adjust it without doing much work at all. Okay, now there's a couple of other things that we need to do. This again, right, we called this up here the bulb. And so let me go to a different color. Okay, that bulb, I need a bulb opacity. Bulb opacity. All right. Now what you have to see is if I make all of these things solid, it's not going to look real. But I want that center bulb part to be the most intense, so I will set that to a 0.9, a 0.9 opacity, meaning it's almost solid. Okay. But now the surrounding part, the top opacity, okay, what would the top be? The top would be this region here. I don't want that as solid. Okay, I don't want that as solid. So I would set that to bulb opacity. Bulb opacity. And let's see, bulb opacity, what do you think? Divided by 2? Okay, divided by 2. It's bulb opacity divided by 2. All right, now I also need now the body opacity, and I'm running out of space here, aren't I? Body opacity is going to be equal to the bulb opacity. The bulb opacity, let's make it even more, like divide by 5. So the body opacity is the bulb opacity divided by 5. So that top part is going to be almost solid, and then more transparent, and then even more transparent. And then finally we are going to need, and I guess I will need to put this up here. So I will start up here now. I've got a couple of more parameters. I'm going to need I'll call it bottom opacity, the bottom opacity, and that's going to be equal to the bottom opacity is the bulb opacity divided by 5. Well, that's the same as the body opacity. Well, yeah, but when I look at it, I might want to change it, so I'm giving it 2 different parameters. Does that make sense? Okay, so I've got my opacities. I need to start by giving it a color. I need to give the whole thing a color. So I'm just going to say, that's annoying. Stop it. My color is going to be equal to the vector. And this is just, the color is going to come from the user, but you got to start it somewhere just so that I can draw it. And so I'm just going to start it at 10, 10, 10, and that means when it turns on, it'll be a very dim gray, so it just looks like a light that is not lit. All right, and then finally I'm going to need an axis. My axis is equal to the vector the vector. And what do I mean? Well, normally cylinders are oriented in the 1, 0, 0 direction, and we have this whole thing up and down, so I need to tell it that that is going to be 0 in the x direction, 1 and 0. And that's going to take all of these things as I create these 8 bodies. I'm going to be able to pop them up and have them going the right way. Okay, I admit that was a little tedious, but the 10 minutes that we just spent scoping this thing out, looking at a picture, it's going to make our coding a whole lot easier. Is anybody still watching, or did everyone tune out and move on to their silly cat videos? I hope you guys did not go watch silly cat videos, because the real action is fixing to start happening here. So you're going to have to give me a second, since I am the only one in the control room here, to come over here. And we will come back to a more reasonable size. And then what I will need you to do is I will need you to fire up your most excellent Visual Studio Code. Okay. And then I will remind you, and let's see, I do need to get my keyboard over here because we're going to be coding, and put the graphics tablet away for right now. Okay. I need to leave it handy though, because we might need to come in and look back at those parameters. Okay, so what I am going to do is I am going to collect my thoughts here. All right, so I got to remind you, we're going to come to the Explorer view, and then I have to remind you that we are working in the Pi Arduino folder, and then we are going to create a new program, which is going to be passdata-9.py, and the .py is kind of important. And boom, fresh new Python program, just waiting to be written. We'll make it a little easier for you to see, and we're going to make it a little easier for you to see by turning off the File Explorer, and then I think we are ready to jump in and start coding here. So I need to do a little Windows management, and Microsoft 11 is fighting with me as far as how big these windows should be. Okay, so let me okay, I am so close to having this where I need. Windows 11 has a lot of promise, a lot of incredible promise, but right now there's a few glitches, and moving your windows and resizing them is one that's a little hard right now. Okay, what's the first thing that we're going to do? We're going to be passing data from Python to the Arduino, and so who is your friend? Mr. Serial, so we will need to import Serial. And if you guys didn't take the earlier lessons, for this to work, you've got to make sure that you do the pip install PySerial. You've got to have PySerial for this to work, okay? Does that need to be a little bigger? I'll make it a little bigger till those boxes start jumping up, and then if that happens, we'll go back. But for right now, let's make it a little bigger. Okay, we're going to create a graphic. So who is our friend? Mr. VPython. So from VPython. Okay. So from VPython, import everything. Okay. And now also we're going to have to turn on that serial port. So we're going to call that Arduino data. And that's going to be equal to serial little s dot serial uppercase s. And now if you remember, my Arduino was on COM3, but yours probably isn't. So you need to go back to the Arduino side and see what COM port your Arduino is on, and you should use that one. And I'm operating at a baud rate of 115/200. You should use whatever you set up in your Arduino program, but if you're following along with me, you should have set it at 115/200. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to go in and we are going to type in our parameters, right? We're just going to go in and type in our parameters, and that should be pretty easy. I got to be careful that I don't get in a hurry and make a lot of typos, but we're just going to type in what dozen or so of these parameters. So my base radius is going to be equal to 1. Okay. Now my base height is going to be equal to base radius divided by 5. Okay, so it's going to be flatter than it is wide. I think that makes sense. Now my body radius, which is the kind of upper cylindrical part, my body radius is going to be equal to my base radius times 0.75. I think that makes sense. Now my body height, we said, was going to be equal to 2 times the body radius. So overall, the height of that cylinder is going to be like the diameter of the base, if that makes sense. Okay, now we got to give the LED top radius. That has got to be the same as the body radius, right? And what's that saying? That's saying that that top round part needs to meet nicely with the body edge. Okay, so I have a LED top radius, and now I need an LED top position, and a position is going to be a vector, and right, that top part is going to need to be moved up, and so we're going to be 0 and X. How far up do we want to go? Well, we want to go body height. Okay, and you're dangerously close to not being able to see what I'm doing. So that is body height, and what does that not like? Oh, I misspelled height up here. So let's come back up here. H-E-I-G-H-T, and then down here, body height. So that's going to move that round cylindrical part up, and it's going to sit nicely on the spherical part is going to sit nicely on the cylindrical part, so I have body height. And then in the Z direction, we don't want to do anything, so that'll be 0. So I've got the LED top. Now remember, I want that smaller sphere inside the bigger sphere, and we called that bulb. And so my bulb radius is going to be my body radius times 0.75. Now, when we run this thing, we might say, well, that's a little small. Let's make it a little bigger, or let's make it a little smaller. We can adjust this, but this is just kind of eyeballing it from the picture. But you would be surprised when you actually do it on paper how close you can get on the first or second try. So I've got my bulb radius now is my body radius times 0.75. Now let's do the leg 1 length, and leg 1 length is equal to body radius. I think we said 8 times the body radius, so it's going to be 8 times the body radius. So that's the length of leg 1. Well, you know it's going to be very similar, so I'm going to copy. And then this will be for leg 2, and this will be for leg 3, and this will be for leg 4. Okay, so leg 1, then this is going to be leg 2, leg 3, and leg 4. And then this one we said was 8. Then that next one was the longest one, so we made that 10. The third leg was kind of in between the other two, so we made it 9. And now we have the fourth back is the same as the first. If you remember over here, the fourth leg, the first leg and the fourth leg were the same. Okay, and the second leg was bigger, and the third leg was in between the two of them. So that looks pretty good to me. And so we are moving right along through all of this. Okay, remember, let's see. So that was leg 4 length. Those were our legs. Now we also need to do a bulb opacity. Our bulb opacity, we were going to have very dense, right? That's that center little part that's going to be really bright. So I'm going to make that a 0.9. Okay, and things in VPython look more real if you don't make them all solid. If you put some opacity, you can make it look a little bit more real. Now the top opacity, that's the bulb, that is the sphere that is surrounding the bulb. The top opacity we are going to say is bulb opacity divided by 2. Okay, and then the bottom opacity is going to be the bulb opacity divided by 5. And so as you come down, it's going to be more transparent and less bright, if that makes sense. Bottom opacity. That looks good. Now also we got to start with a color, so my color is going to be equal to vector, and we were just going to make it 10 for red, 10 green, and 10 blue, and that'll just be a very dim, like you can kind of see it there, but it's not going to look like it's on. It's going to look like an off LED. And then we want to be able to point the thing up, so we're going to have a my axis is equal to the vector what? 0 and x point up, 1 and y. 0 and x point up. That is terrible. Vector. Okay, 0 and x point up, 1 in y, and 0 coming out in z. Right. So now we got all that done. What are we ready to do now? What we are ready to do now is we are ready to create those, what did we say, 8 bodies, those 8 bodies. So we need 8 lines of code to make this LED. So let's go LED base, right? What is the LED base? Just to remind you, the LED base is this part down here, that cylinder down there. So the LED base, switch back where you can see us, the LED base is going to be equal to a cylinder, okay, a cylinder. And now we're going to have to tell it, well, what is the length of the cylinder? Well, the length of the cylinder is going to be the base height. Okay, does that make sense? The base height, right? Now, it's calling it length, but since we had turned it this way, we called it height. Okay, but we already set that up. We set it up as base height, didn't we? Okay, and then the radius is equal to what? The base radius. We already set that up. Okay, now the color is equal to my color. Now why do I not have to say vector here? Because I already put the vector as part of my color. Okay, and the axis is equal to my axis, and the opacity is equal to bottom opacity, like that. Okay, so did you see that? I'll let you see that. You can see that right now. I'll go back, show you the rest of it. Okay, base is equal to cylinder, LED base, cylinder, length, base height. That should make sense, shouldn't it? Okay, now the LED body is going to be almost the same as this. So I'm going to take this line of code, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to change it. Let's try that again. Copy, paste. Now instead of LED base, what is this going to be? This is going to be the LED body. That's that cylindrical part that's coming up. And so that, okay, that is not going to be the base height. That is going to be what? The body height. The body height, right? And then the radius is going to be the what? The body radius. I hope this makes sense, that it's easier to just adjust the one before it. So we got body radius. Color is still my color. Axis is still my axis. Opacity is still bottom opacity. So all that is good. So we've got the base and we've got the body. Now the LED top is going to be equal to a what? A sphere, right? And the sphere is going to have a radius, and that radius is going to be equal to LED top radius, right? LED, the top has a top radius, okay? And now the color is equal to my color. All right, now we do not here, on this one, on the sphere, we don't have to give it an axis because a sphere doesn't really have an axis, but we do need to give it a position. Okay, and so what is the position? POS is equal to what? The LED top position that we already set up. Okay, and now the opacity is going to be equal to top opacity. Okay, now do you see how the code is really kind of getting all confusing? Like if you come in and you start looking at this part of code, then you've got just all this stuff that's kind of hard. But you see, we're not going to have to change that if we put it in there right. If we want to change our model, we just come up here to our parameters and we change it up here. Hopefully that makes sense. So I have LED base, LED body, and LED top. Now I need my bulb. Okay, my bulb, B-U-L-B, and that is a what? It is a sphere. All right, and it is a radius of, radius is equal to LED, no, it is bulb radius, like that. Now color is equal to my color, like that, right? So we got the color. Now the position also has to be moved up, just like the other one. The position is going to be LED, or no, it's bulb position we call it. Position is equal to bulb position. Did I do a bulb position up there, or did I forget that? Okay, I did a bulb radius, but I didn't do a bulb position. Okay, and that though is going to be equal to LED top position. I think I did that over in my sketch, but I think I forgot to do it here. So now I can come down and I can use bulb position here. Now again, why did I have bulb position not just be LED top position? Well, what if we wanted to adjust it later and have them not the same? I'm building this for editability and adjustment later on after we look at it. Okay, and then I am also going to need, ooh, that was not good. What happened? Okay, we'll just have to type it in. Position is equal to bulb position, and now my opacity is equal to bulb opacity. Bulb opacity, like that. Okay, so now I've created the base, the body, the top, the bulb. Now I need the legs. So I'm going to say leg 1 is equal to a what? A box. Is that right? Yeah. Can't be a box. Yeah, I think it's called a box. For some reason, I wanted to put rectangle in there, box. And then we're going to say the color equal color dot white. Why did I not make it my color? Because my color is going to be changing. The top part of the LED is going to be changing color, but we don't want the color of the legs to be changing. Right, the leg color is not going to change as the LED changes color. So the color is color dot what. The axis is equal to my axis. Why? Because we don't want the LED like this and the legs sticking out. We've got to turn the legs to the right orientation. Now we got to think a little bit about position. Okay, the position is going to be equal to a vector. Okay, a vector. Now, boxes are reference to the center. Okay, boxes are reference to the center of the box. And remember, I have the LED base at the origin, and I have the LED body at the origin. If I don't put a position in here, then this leg is going to be sticking up into the LED, so I need to drop it by half of the leg length. Okay, so what does that mean? The position needs to be, first of all, let me just say I've got to do something in X, so I'll just put an X there for now, but I need to drop it by, and I need to drop it down, I need to drop it down, so it's going to be minus leg 1 length, leg 1 length divided by 2. So you see, if it's here, I want to drop it by, if it's here, I want to drop it by half of the length of the leg. But you see, if this is the base, I don't want it just coming and touching. I want it up in, you know, into the LED a little bit, right? Because the LED leg sticks in there a little bit and it will look more natural. And so I want it to go up into the base. So what would I do? I would add to this, base height. I would add to this base height. Okay. Now in Z, I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to put it 0 in Z. But now, ooh, that was not good. Okay, but we want to come back now and think about this X. And so if we think about the X, if you look over here, you can see that none of these 4 legs are in the middle. And so leg 1 and leg 2 need to be moved in the negative direction, and leg 3 and leg 4 need to be moved in the right direction. And so we're just going to kind of have to eyeball this. And it looks like, oh, about 0.5. I think I would move the first leg to about half of the radius to the left. Okay, half of the radius to the left is what looks kind of good to me. So here on this X, I'm going to say move that leg minus, because I'm moving it to the left, minus 0.5 times what? The base radius. Okay, so that's going to move it over, and then it should be right up and down now. Okay, now I've got to go ahead and let's see, did we give it a length yet? We haven't given it its length, so we need to come here after all of that, and we need to, I am curious about that. Okay, that's a vector, so that makes sense. So I'm coming in after that, but before the closing paragraph, and I need to say length is equal to leg 1 length, okay, and the width is equal to leg width, and the height is equal to leg width as well. Okay, we called both of them leg width. Does that make sense? All right, so now that big monster line of code, let's grab that. Oh, I said minus, that should be equal there. So leg 1 is equal to that. Now let's grab that, copy it. Now let's paste it for leg 2. Let's paste it for leg 3. Let's paste it for leg 4. So leg 1, and then this is going to be leg 2. And then this is going to be leg 3. And then this is going to be leg 4. All right. The colors are all going to be, and because these are vertically aligned, I just think it's easy to kind of come down and edit them that way. So they're all going to be white. They're all going to be in the same axis, but now their position is going to be different. So the first one was minus 0.5 to the left. This one should not be that far to the left. It should be more like minus 0.15. And if that one's minus 0.15, then leg 3 should be 0.15 plus, and this one should be 0.5 plus, and that should line them up. Then you can see that it's leg 1, this should be then leg 2, this should be leg 3, and this should be leg 4, okay? And then this should be, the length is leg 1, leg 2, leg 3, and leg 4. You all can see all of that. And all of them are just leg width, leg width, because right, I can't imagine any LED that would have different sizes, you know, different squares, cross sections on them. Okay. All right, man. Okay. Now one more thing that we want to do when we go in now and are changing colors as the program is running, as we are changing colors as the thing, I don't want to give a color adjustment for this, a color adjustment for this, a color adjustment for this, and a color adjustment for this. There's sort of the parts that change color, we have 4 bodies, and I don't want to have to apply the color to each one of those. So I'm going to show you something new in VPython that I don't think I've shown you yet, and that is we can create something new, and I'm just going to call this the head, like the whole head of the LED. The head is going to be equal to a compound of what? Watch carefully, and let me make sure I get that up where you can see it. A compound. Okay, so I open my parenthesis. Now I got to create a list. So I open my parentheses. Now I open my body, my list. And what do I want in my list? Well, I want the bulb to be part of this assembly. I want the LED base to be part of the assembly. I want the LED body to be part of the assembly, and LED top to be part of the assembly. Now, why are the legs not part of the assembly? Because the legs aren't going to be changing color. And if I put them on here, then if I change the color of head, the color of the legs are going to change. Does that make sense? Man, we're making progress. Okay. Now, what I want to do is, I think let's just see if this will create the simulation. So I'm going to say while true. Okay, when it's true, true is always true, and then I'll just pass, and that'll just keep the simulation alive. I might have to put a rate statement in there. I don't know, but let's just see if that'll run. Well, let's run this thing and see what it looks like. Ooh, invalid syntax. Did I really make a mistake? Or did I make a mistake? Man. What is that? It's kind of strange, it doesn't. That looks good. Okay, let's kill this. Let me make it smaller so we can see what's going on a little better. So let's come in, let's run this. Okay, so that is actually a mistake there. Okay. So I was doing this how we were asking them to input data, but that should be commas. Okay, that should be commas there. Fair enough. My mistake. I'll own that one. I will own that one. I hope you guys were yelling at me. Okay, and here we have got some extraneous thing that we didn't put a comma in. And that hopefully you guys caught. And that is, does it tell us where that is? For some reason, I'm not seeing it give me a line number there. But it is where I am doing, it looks like it is where I'm creating the leg. So let's look at this leg and see if I missed a comma. And if I did, I missed it on all of them. Yeah, okay. Hopefully you guys saw that needed a comma there. All right. So I fixed all 4 of those lines. That's the danger of copying and pasting. You copy and paste your mistakes. Okay, let's make sure it's dead. Let's run this thing, and hopefully. Okay, that looks kind of interesting. Okay, now what is interesting, I seem to have kind of gotten a LED there, but I seem to be missing my legs. What happened to the legs? Did I not give the legs a color? I gave the legs a color, color.white. I had that top part there. That looks good. Color what? Axis, my axis, position, vector. Oh, leg width, something. What did I? Man, that's going to be a lot of copying and pasting. What did I do wrong there? We'll get this. Okay, the width was leg. I just didn't define leg width up there, I guess. And all of this busyness. Yeah, I created all these links, but I didn't say leg width. And what should my leg width be? I'm just going to say base radius divided by 10. Okay, so when I'm defining these legs, I defined their length, but I didn't just say, I'm just saying they're like 10 times narrower than they are long, and that should be pretty reasonable. And then down here now it should be happy over here. Yeah, you see now it has leg width in all those places, so it should be happy. All right, that's not too bad. I like to, but you see I like to kind of debug the code as I'm going along. Okay, boom, look at that. I think that is pretty good. Now it looks like an off LED because we haven't turned it on yet. And one of the things I like, and let's see if I can zoom in, I really like how you can see the legs kind of went up into the plastic a little bit of the base. I kind of like that. The one thing I don't like is I think it's kind of squatty. So I think the body part needs to be taller. So I'm going to go ahead and make that adjustment. So I'm going to come over here, and I think we called that body height. Body height we said was body height we said was twice the body radius. I'm going to try, what if we made it 3 times? That just really looks squatty to me. So let's run this again. Two and a half. Okay, I promise I won't change it after that. Let me change it one more time. 2.5. Okay, don't get mad at me. I could sit here and I could do this all day long trying to get that perfect one, but we're going to go with 2.5 this time and see what happens. Let's kill it, run it. Access denied. Oh, okay, I ran it too quick. You got to give it a second to free up the COM port. Boom, beautiful. No more OCD. Okay, that I'm going to say is a beautiful LED. Isn't that kind of amazing? That really, and do you see how I kind of, with this opacity, even though it's off, really if it was off, I would try to maybe make the opacities the same. But you see it's going to look like something that is emitting light because this is more solid and then less solid and then less solid. Okay, I think that is pretty exciting. This is going to go fast now. So now let's come over here, and what do we need to do inside of this while loop? Well, we need to go back, and this should be pretty familiar. I need to get my command, so I got to find out from the user what he wants. So I'm going to say input, and I'm going to say please input your color in the form R:(G:)B, and then tell them I want it between 0 and 255 for each one of those in the string and in the input. Does that look good? Yeah. Now I need to remember that on the read side on Arduino, it's going to read that string until what? Until it sees the /R. So I'm going to see my command is equal to my command concatenated with the /R. Make sure your slash is going the right way. It should turn that happy little purple if you make your slash go the right way. Okay, you know what I hate? I hate like when I'm talking for 30 minutes and then I look over on the screen and you're not even seeing my code. So I looked over there. I was happy to see that you're seeing my code view. Sometimes like I'll go to the sketch pad and then forget to come back. Makes a lot more sense if you can see what I'm seeing. Okay, I got that my command. Let me move this over a little bit if I can. Okay. Okay, so I got my command. Now I need to send that data. And so I'm going to say Arduino data, which is my object, my COM port object. And I'm going to write the data to Arduino. And what am I going to write? I'm going to write my command like that. And just remember, you got to encode it like that. And I think it's as simple as that. That's really very, very simple. And now on my side, I want to change that virtual LED. So I got to bust up the string that I just input. So to bust it up, I got to say my color is going to be equal to my CMD dot what? Split. And that will split that string into an array with 3 values. Okay. And so what do I want to split up? I want to split it at the what? At the colon, like that. So now split it at the colon. Okay. Now my color is an array with 3 values. Well, what do I know? Red is going to be equal to my color and the 0th element, which is the first one. But what I got to remember is my color, you know, that was a string, and so red is going to be a string. So I got to change this. I want a number, so I got to change it to an int. And that will turn like the string 255 into the number 255. And similarly, green is going to be equal to the int of my color. And this will be 1. And then can you guess the next one? Blue. Blue is equal to int my color 2. And so now I've got red, green, and blue from that. Could it really be that easy? Okay. Now, what do I want to change the color of? I want to change the color of the head. Remember the head? And that way I don't have to go in and change the color of all those different components. So I'm just going to say head.color is equal to the vector. All right. Now remember, Arduino wanted a number between 0 and 255 for the different color components. VPython mixes based not on 255, but from 0 to 1. So we've got to normalize that. And so we've got to take and say the vector red divided by 255, comma, green divided by 255, comma, blue divided by 255. And so those RGB numbers will be scaled now to be a number between 0 and 1 for VPython, if that makes sense. Head.color. Could it really be that easy? Could it really be that easy? I ask you, where was the real work on this program done? The real work was done here. And even though it took 10 minutes, I think you're going to be very pleased with the results. I think you're going to be very pleased with the results. So I will need you to hold your breath this time. Okay, now the real question is, can we bring this thing to life? Okay, we've got it. Now down here in the program, now I got to make this small. I just somehow wish I had one. I wish I had a more elegant way of showing you both of these things. But I just got to make the program real small. Okay, and then I'll make this window a little smaller. Okay, and then let's see. I think I can bring it down like that. All right. Now, if I might need to get out of your way a little bit so you can see what I am typing. Okay, so down here in the bottom of my Visual Studio window, it wants RG. I said RGG. RGG. We'll fix that. Okay, I'll fix it, but I'm not going to run it again. Okay, so that was this RGB. Okay, yeah, I'll run it again. I can't stand it when something isn't right. All right, so we'll come down here. And let's see. I need to, did that actually kill it already? Maybe it did. Okay, so now we'll come down here. We'll see if we can run it. And then I'll do a little Windows management if it pops up and works. Okay, so that looks good. So we can bring this down. And then you see it's asking for RGB down here. And let me make this a little bit smaller so you can really see that LED good. Okay, I want to get kind of a dim orange. And now guys, remember, don't forget the real world LED. So you see over here we have the real world LED. And then right here we have the virtual LED. And you see how they kind of look amazingly similar, right? They look amazingly similar. And so I want kind of a dim orange. So I'm going to say make red 25, make green 7, and make blue 0. Boom! Look at that. Okay, do you see down here? that I wish you could see this better, but this is an orange. This is a really dim orange. And in the virtual world, it's a really dim orange. Now, if you were able to see this with your actual eyes, those colors are very, very close. It's just when I turn the LED on, it kind of messes up the exposure on the camera, so it doesn't look as similar. Okay, well, let's say, what if we just went 255, 0, 0? All right, we have bright red. We have bright red in the real world. We have bright red in the real world, bright red in the virtual world. Do you see that? Now let's go 0, 255, 0, like that. And boom, green down here in the real world, green in the virtual world. Let's go blue. That's 0, 0, 255. And then boom. Ah, what happened? I must have input that wrong. 255. Why did it not like that? Did I have an error in my code there? Okay, we got to come up here and see why that crashed, because that 0, 1, 2, red divided by 255, green divided by 255, blue divided by 255. Why did that crash? Oh. Okay, I didn't put the middle 0 in. That makes sense. Okay, no problem with the code. I just input that wrong. We'll bring this back. We'll kill it. We'll run it. We're going for blue this time. Okay, and bring this down where you can see it. And so this time we will go 0, 0, 0, colon 0, colon 255. This should be a beautiful blue. Boom! Blue in the real world, blue in the virtual world. Okay. Guys, do you like this LED? Do you kind of like how we made the outside sphere and the inside sphere? And it really looks a whole lot. I just wish I could capture it on the camera better. I wish I could capture it on the camera better. Man, this is fun. I'm going to see if I can get aqua. I'm going to go 0, and then I'm going to go, let's say, 200. And then that's red, green, and then blue. Let's make 150. My favorite color is that kind of turquoise teal color. Ah, look at that. That is really beautiful. That is really beautiful. I think I want a little more green though. So I would go 0, and I would go 225. I would go 150. I don't know. I just like mixing colors. Yeah, that's a little closer, trying to get that beautiful turquoise teal color. All right, guys. All right. Let me come back over here, and let me get up here. Let's go back to the wonderful river cam. Let's go back to the wonderful river cam. Guys, I hope you understand how important it is what I taught you today. Because most people go in and they give like that, let's say the LED body is equal to a cylinder with the numbers. And then they have all these different bodies with all of these different numbers. And then when you come in and you want to adjust something, there is no way to figure out what's what. To where when we did it today with parameters, then you don't have to look at those long lines of those long complicated calls to like the box or to the cylinder or to the sphere. You just have a nice little table up at the top that you can adjust. That's one thing. The second thing is that you want to, as much as possible, make one parameter depend on another parameter. And that way, okay, I can't help it. I'll do one more thing. I can't help myself. But let's come back over here. Okay, and let's see if we can change something. And so I need to give you the view where you can see it here. So let's just see, I shouldn't do this, but let's say I just wanted to make the base radius 10. I want to make like a huge LED, like a big old huge LED. So I make the base radius. You can't see that, can you? What I did was I came in, and where was that? I made the base radius 10. So this will be like a huge LED. And now when I run it, okay, Look at that. What do you notice? By making that one parameter 10 times as big, by making that one parameter 10 times as big, it didn't break the model. Everything scaled up 10 times as big and the model still works. Now, if I wanted to adjust this, if I wanted to adjust the base thickness a little bit, if I wanted to adjust the base thickness a little bit, or the base height, I could come in and say, well, that base height, that was a little thin. Instead of dividing by 5, I want to divide it by 3. I want to make that base a little bit more prominent. I could do that. And then I come in. The model still works, and that base is a little thicker, and actually I kind of like that a little better. I think that's better. So do you see how easy it is now? Do you see how easy it is now to play with the parameters? Because you're not having to look at those complicated long lines of code. You're able to just kind of go in, and things that were named very well, very good variable names, now you can adjust and you can make this thing do whatever you want it to do. So I think that that is just super cool. And I hope you guys really understand how important this is, because as we're going to future lessons in this series, in the VPython series, as we're making complicated bodies, you've got to do it. You have to do it with parameters. And as much as possible, you want the parameters related to each other, if that makes sense. So it's going to be really important. Plus, as I said earlier, I've got a 3D design, a CAD course that's coming up. And if you kind of are exposed to this idea of parametric modeling and parametric design now, it's going to make a lot more sense when we get to that CAD program. Okay, guys, I really hope that you're having as much fun taking these lessons as I am making them. I really love making this LED, and to me, it was just exciting when I saw how real it was. You guys make sure you post your solutions. Show me what you did. Hopefully, some of you guys did some more dressing it up than I did, but hopefully from this lesson you understand the parametric design. Now the homework for next week is to just go in and play with your LED. Can you take it to the next level? Can you do something like maybe have the LED actually plugged into your breadboard? Can you include some more components? Like you could imagine that you could model a little bit more of your circuit and have the LED come to life as part of a larger model. Okay, that's your homework, is to become familiar with parametric design by taking this and adding some more components to it. Then what next week, the lesson 13 is going to be kind of going further in Visual Python and going further in Arduino, where we're doing something more complicated on the Arduino side and we're doing something more complicated on the VPython side. And so we're just going to start developing more and more and more advanced projects as this thing moves along. Okay, guys, I have talked enough. I have talked enough today, so I will wrap this thing up. If you like this video, make sure that you give us a thumbs up. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you subscribe, and when you do, ring that bell so you get notification of future lessons. And most importantly, guys, share this with other people. See if you get some other people taking these lessons, because the world needs more people doing engineering and coding and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter, sitting on the shores of the mighty River Nile from TopTechBoy.com, enjoying my coffee. I will talk to you guys later.